a quattro system, we have a lamella clutch in the end of the gearbox, and we have a second dog clutch in the rear differential. So we work with two clutches, so that if we open both of them, all parts in between are coming to a standstill. And the main spin losses on the rear powertrain is coming from the rear differential and the big ring gear that's rotating in the oil. And the bevel set and the bearings in the bevel set. So, for example, if you took a rear differential, put it on the table and try to turn it, it takes a lot of torque just to turn it. So we can reduce this pretty much. So 80% of the losses of the rear drivetrain is coming from the rear differential. 80%. So if you want to do something about fuel efficiency, you have to manage to come the rear differential to standstill. Okay. If we need an all-wheel drive, we first have to speed up all the parts that are coming to standstill. Okay? And we speed them up with the lamella clutch, because we can only engage the dog clutch if the differential speed is not too big. We speed those parts up with the lamella clutch, and we do this very, very quickly. And if the parts are speeding at the right speed, we can engage the dog clutch in the rear. Okay? We see down here that we have a red background, we are in all-wheel drive mode. If we have a white background, we are in front-wheel drive mode. Okay? So now we will disengage. When you start the car, turn on the ignition. We first always start in all-wheel drive, because we do not know anything about the situation. And we only disengage the all-wheel drive when we are sure about the situation. So in every situation where the all-wheel drive might give you an advantage, the all-wheel drive will be already engaged before you need it. So you see, even here while you're cornering, even though you're very smoothly with the throttle, but when you're cornering, the driving dynamic of an all-wheel drive is better than on a front-wheel drive. And then we engage. But now the corner is gone, we're going on the straight, we immediately disengage. Because now when you're cruising, you don't have any advantage of an all-wheel drive.
So this is literally connected to this vehicle and it's really what's going on?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So for example, if you push the throttle and accelerate very hard, you can do the test. You saw. Long before you felt that the torque is on the front wheels, the all-wheel drive was already engaged.
Yep.
Yeah. And we do this with a very complex calculation model. So, for example, we take this case that you just did. You push the throttle. At the moment you push the throttle, the engine torque is not just there. There is a little delay in it. And we use this delay because it gives us time. We have a simulation model in our own all-wheel drive ECU, and we are simulating what the engine will do. You push the throttle to a certain value and with a certain gradient.
Okay.
And we are simulating how will the engine build up the torque with a forecast for the next 500 milliseconds.
Okay.
Yeah? So we know our engines, and we know what will happen when you do this, because the engine is always doing the same. Well, it's depending on the condition of the engine, and we're calculating that. So maybe the engine is cold or it's hot, and we are calculating that, and we know with the forecast of 500 milliseconds what the engine will do. Then we have a simulation model for the gearbox. So we know what gear will the gearbox engage in the next 500 milliseconds. And if we know both of them, what torque will the engine build up and what gear will be engaged, we know how much torque will be sent to the front wheels. Then we have a simulation model for the body. So we are calculating the load of every wheel. When you are accelerating, the front wheels are lifted. When you are cornering, the inner wheels are lifted. And we to know how much torque we can get to the ground, we need to know what load you have on every wheel. And the limiting wheel will always be the inner front wheel, because this will be the first one to slip. And then we have a friction calculation. So we calculate the contact, or we learn the contact between the tire and the road. Okay?
How do you calculate that? I mean, sensors? What kind of sensor would you use? Because you'll need to know the conditions of the road.
You will see it. This is our friction potential. This is this circle here. This is the friction circle that we calculated. For example, if you do a harder braking, you can do it. Brake a little harder. Not really, but harder.
No.
You saw this was slightly increased now. If you do a braking a little more harder, just to show it to you.
Oh, I got somebody behind me. I'll do it. You let me know when you're ready, Vince.
Yep, I'm good.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So the friction circle you saw instantly went very big, because we learned we're on a dry road now.
Okay.
We will see a little later. We will go onto a sand road, and you will see how this decreases. So we learn about the contact when you are cornering.
Okay, so
Now we already learned.
we've already learned it, so it knows, so it's not going to relearn it again.
Okay. Friction potential is the earlier the all-wheel drive system will be engaged, because before this calculated friction potential, if our force vector is coming up to 80% of this calculated friction potential, the all-wheel drive will be engaged. And if the potential now is very small, the all-wheel drive will be engaged at very low torque on the front wheels. And if we learned that we have a good potential between the tires and the ground, the all-wheel drive will be engaged much later. But in every case, it will be engaged far before you can feel a difference between front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive.
All right, thank you, Peter.
We are calculating the yaw rate.
Yep.
How does it fit to the ideal yaw? You see here the vector on the inner front wheel. When you are pushing the throttle, the vector will be wider.
Yep.
When you are going through a corner, you will have side forces. And with this friction limit that we learned, we say, okay, this is the vector, this is the forces that are coming to the ground in front-wheel drive, and we have activation thresholds that are far lower than the limit that we calculated. So we know with the load on the inner front wheel and the friction, the amount of torque that you can get on this wheel before it starts to slip. And then we said, okay, we only use, if you would use 80% of the amount of torque, we will engage the all-wheel drive, even though it's not needed now. So we only have an activation threshold that is lower than the real friction limit. And with this calculation, we will manage to be always faster than the front wheels, and you will never manage to bring the front wheel to slip. Okay.
That's interesting. How long took you guys to develop all this thing?
6 years.
Okay.
And is this newly launched in the Q5, or is it?
We launched the system in the A4 all-road for the first time.
A4 A4.
A4 this year. And the big volume is now coming with the Q5. And with the Q5 it's globally sold. The A4 All-Road is not sold all over the world. We have about 15 separate and completely independent calculation strings, and they are all looking at different things. And if one of those calculation things say, okay, the all-wheel drive might give us an advantage in the driving situation that we are just in, you will have an engagement. So this is really a performance all-wheel drive. It's not a traction all-wheel drive, but we want to have a very good driving dynamics. And it's not a reactive system, but it's a predictive system.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what you do, before the front wheels start to slip, we are already engaged.
How far out are you predicting again for the road condition?
Sorry?
How far out, how far down the road are you predicting the road condition?
The road condition I cannot predict. The road condition I can only learn. So the friction I can learn from what has been.
Okay.
I can predict what torque is sent to the front wheels. Yeah. Before the gear is engaged, we know the gear will be engaged, and if you have a shift down, we know, okay, the torque on the front wheels will be higher, and then we have the time to engage. We have a separate all-wheel drive ECU.
Okay.
So it's on our all-wheel drive lamella clutch, and we have our own ECU, and we do all these calculations on this ECU. Yeah.
But is there a single system that ties all the chassis? Okay.
No.
Okay. There isn't one.
We do our own calculation for our purpose, and we need those. We need the time. We need the forecast, because we need time. If we disengaged and all parts are standing still,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to engage, it takes a little time. And so before now there was no need to do this forecast, but because we want to be always on time, we do this forecast for 500 milliseconds. And
What you
our
calculate
system
every
is so,
you calculate every 500 milliseconds?
no, we're counting every 10 milliseconds
Okay.
with a forecast of 500 milliseconds. So 100 times every second, we are calculating the whole thing with about 150 values that we are using, and we are calculating a very complex calculation every 10 milliseconds with a forecast of the next 500 milliseconds.
Okay, that's just to determine whether to stay in two-wheel drive or quattro.
Yeah, you're right. Then we learn something about you as a driver.
Uh-oh.
So you're now a very efficient driver.
I'm not.
Yeah, of course you are.
Oh, I am.
Yeah, because you have so many limitations when you're driving in normal traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So even if you're normally a very sporty driver, in many situations you drive in the traffic, you're just cruising behind another car, or you have speed limits or something like that. And we see what you are doing, and now we saw, okay, for a couple of minutes you were just cruising, so you're an efficient driver.
Mm-hmm.
If you, for example, if you just let a little space behind the other car, and then, for example, just make a kick down right to the button. Okay. Now we learned you're in auto mode. But if you do a real kick down, there's a switch on in the button. Yeah. You can do it just down to the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, let me get some room. Just for a second, I don't have to be that long, right?
No.
Okay.
Just
Let's go.
pedal to the metal. Yeah. Now you're instantly dynamic driver. So you see here this car, you're a dynamic driver, and now we count down. We are looking for the next minutes. Are there any input from you as a driver that is very dynamic on the steering wheel, or on the throttle, do you use much of the lateral force, and then we can calculate, okay, this might be a dynamic driver.
Okay.
In dynamic mode, we have lower activation thresholds. We activate this all-wheel drive system not at 80% of the potential, but at 75% of the potential. And we have longer hold times. We stay longer in the all-wheel drive because we want to avoid a toggle in between front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive.
Right.
So if you're a dynamic driver and you drive on a curvy road and you do it in a sporty way, we will not disengage at all.
So that's an adjustment, automatic adjustment.
Yeah.
There's no way you as a driver you can configure it how you want it.
You don't have to. You can switch to the dynamic mode in the drive select.
Yeah.
And then we will do the same.
Okay.
We will have the lowest activation thresholds and we will have longer hold times.
Okay.
So with the quattro,
But you don't have to switch anything. We learn this and we do it on.
What mode would you have to drive in? Automatic for all this to happen, Peter? Is it auto? So would you be an auto drive select, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. In every mode, we do the same calculation.
Okay.
If you switch to the off-road mode, we don't disengage.
Wait, is there an off-road mode? I didn't see an off-road mode.
You have an off-road mode.
Oh yes, okay, there is an off-road mode.
Yeah. When you're in off-road mode, we don't disengage.
You do or you don't?
If you do a braking now, a little harder on the gravel,
No.
or accelerate or something like that. Yeah. Now instantly, you saw the friction circle is getting smaller.
Yep.
So what happens if the friction circle gets smaller?
We learned about the friction potential of the tires, and we learned instantly you're on gravel now, and that the risk that the front wheel might start to slip is higher. So we have lower activation thresholds. Okay, because we know there's less potential on the front wheels.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So no matter what you do with the car, no matter what drive select mode you're in, you will never manage to bring the front wheels to slip, because we have no mode where we have a very efficient all-wheel drive mode. We do believe if the customer is buying a quattro, he must have the whole quattro performance, no matter in what drive select mode he is in. So in every mode we have the full performance, but we have a lot of efficiency that's coming from itself. This is what you were driving, since there was a driver change. You were driving 75% in front wheel drive, but you had 14 activations. So there were 14 situations where the all-wheel drive gave you an advantage while driving. All-wheel drive is driving far better than the front-wheel drive in many situations. But if we look at the situations, we see here the GPS plot that you just drove. Let's see here, for example. It's only short events when you have an advantage by the all-wheel drive. It's when you're cornering. It's when you're accelerating pretty hard, when you're starting to drive and push the throttle hard. These are only short events. But if you're just cruising, and this is most of the time you're cruising, the all-wheel drive doesn't give you a really advantage. And in this case, we switch into the very efficient front-wheel drive. And the challenge is to be always on time before you can feel something like that.
That's pretty cool.
We can see here driver type detection. So we see here in white it's the auto mode, in green it's efficient driver, in red it's dynamic driver. So we see here in most of the cases it was just in a normal traffic. We are in auto mode or in efficiency mode. And this was more or less testing some things, braking and making a kickdown and
so I'm an extremely boring driver. That's the conclusion of your calculations.
I think it was a more or less a boring driving situation.
Yeah, it's tough. Is that everything, dealer?
No, of course not. Well, I can talk for hours.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Your feedback.
Yeah, no problem for that.
Great job.
All right, thank you, dealer.
Okay.